Life on Mars? Scientists find possible evidence. Humans have been attracted by the idea that other worlds out there might have life, just the way Earth is. And now, it seems scientists have found possible evidence that life does exist on Mars. Keep watching this video to find out more. What you need to know. Our exploration of the moon has shown us that it is totally uninhabitable. But the other planets in our solar system still hold great promise. The clouds of Venus could support life, while the subsurface ocean of liquid water may be teeming with life on Europa and Enceladus. Titan's liquid hydrocarbon lakes are also an interesting site to look for strange new forms of life. However, Mars is by far the most intriguing prospect there is. Water clearly flowed on the surface of this tinier, chillier, more distant relative of Earth for more than 1 billion years ago. There has been circumstantial evidence pointing to the likelihood of life on Mars, both in the ancient past and even now. Many exciting findings about Mars have been uncovered thanks to data collected by orbiters, landers, and rovers. On the surface of Mars, we can detect dried riverbeds and other remnants of previous glacial activity. Both the hematite spheres and the sedimentary rock seen on Mars can only form in wet settings on Earth. Also, we have caught Martian snows, frozen surface water, and solid subsurface ice on camera. Even though this conclusion is still up for debate, we have seen what appears to be salty surface water constantly streaming down the walls of several craters. Early Mars had a dense atmosphere and moisture on its surface, both of which are necessary for life on Earth. Although there is little evidence that life exists on Mars today, there are 3 bits of evidence which suggest it may have existed in the past. In 1976, equipment on board NASA's Mars Viking landers provided the first convincing evidence. 3 separate biological experiments were conducted using a gas chromatograph mass spectrometer, a gas exchange experiment, a labeled release experiment, and a pyrolytic release experiment. Both Viking landers had a favorable result in the labeled release experiment the first time it was conducted. The results of every other test were null. On December 27, 1984, a chunk of Martian meteorite known as Allen Hills 84001 was discovered. It turns out just about 3% of all meteorites that hit Earth come from Mars, but this one was about 2 kilograms in weight, making it one of the largest Martian meteorites ever discovered. It first appeared on Mars 4 billion years ago and arrived on Earth barely 13,000 years ago. In 1996, we conducted an investigation of its interior and found what may be ancient biological life forms or the byproducts of inorganic processes. In addition, NASA's newest Mars rover, named Curiosity, was recently released as the 3rd piece of evidence. Burps of methane were detected by Curiosity as the seasons on Mars shifted, but only at the end of the Martian winter and the beginning of the Martian spring. Again, this is a mixed signal at best, as methane release could be due to seasonal inorganic geological processes or organic biological processes. There are 5 potential scenarios for the evolution of life on Mars, based on the totality of the data and our current understanding of the red planet. It's possible that 1. The planet is doomed to remain lifeless forever. 2. Life once flourished there but eventually died out. 3. Life is still present there today. 4. It was seeded by life from Earth long ago. Or 5. It has just been colonized by life from Earth since the advent of space travel. Let's analyze these scenarios one by one. 1. There was never any life on Mars. While early Mars shared many similarities with early Earth, including a wet environment, the conditions required for life to emerge never materialized. Inorganic geological and chemical processes continued as usual, but no living things were present. Just over 3 billion years ago, the sun completely evaporated Mars's atmosphere, leaving the planet as we see it today, with no trace of atmospheric or surface water. This is the most cautious approach, and it would necessitate that all 3 of the supposed positive tests be resolved as inorganic or as contamination-based. This theory is likely going to be the leading theory until some really convincing evidence comes forward that solidly indicates either past or present life on Mars. 2. Life once existed on Mars, but it eventually became extinct. There are many ways in which this scenario is just as interesting as the last one. It's easy to picture a world with the following: an atmosphere comparable to that of early Earth, a stable layer of liquid water on it, continents that feature a wide range of geological features, volcanoes, one that generates a magnetic field, a day that's about the same length as ours, and temperatures that are only slightly lower than what we experience on Earth right now. Given that life first appeared on Earth only several 100 million years after its formation, many find it difficult to believe that these conditions wouldn't eventually lead to life after more than 1 billion years. The loss of Mars's atmosphere, however, had a significant impact on the planet and might have led to the demise of all life on it. Evidence to support this theory might be found by excavating Mars's sedimentary rock for fossilized life forms or even gradually evolved carbon-rich inclusions. 3. Life may have originated on Mars, and it may still be there, dormant for the most part. This is perhaps the most positive view of Martian life that can be supported by science. Maybe life emerged early on Mars, and a few extremophiles survived in a kind of cooled, suspended animation state after the planet lost its atmosphere. That life woke up and started doing its important biological activities when the correct conditions arose, possibly below ground where moisture can periodically flow. If so, then life could yet exist just below the surface of Mars, perhaps in the dunes only a few feet below our rover. Despite the fact that life on any planet besides Earth would be a revolutionary scientific breakthrough, it is likely that we are only speaking of single-celled species, maybe not even attaining the sophistication of a eukaryotic cell. On July 30th, 2020, NASA successfully launched the Perseverance rover, which will collect vital soil samples to try to test this conjectural scenario. 4. Mars was devoid of life until it was seeded by Earth. The Earth's fifth great mass extinction occurred 65 million years ago, when a massive, fast-moving body impacted it, leaving behind the Chicxulub crater and throwing up enough debris to cover the planet in a cloud. In the same way that impactors on the Moon or Mars scatter meteors throughout the solar system, some of which eventually land on Earth, it is likely that this tremendous impact sent bits of Earth flying all the way into space. Of course, some impacts have the opposite effect, hurling Earth-bound materials into other planets like Mars. Although it makes sense that the organically rich stuff found in Earth's crust would make it to Mars if propelled by a great force, it's more likely that organisms from Earth arrived on Mars and started reproducing there. With any luck, one day we'll be able to trace the origins of all life on Mars back to its apex and find out it shares a genesis with all of Earth's current forms of life. It's an intriguing possibility that doesn't have a lot of obvious flaws. 5. Earth's space programs have helped to bring Earth-based life to Mars. Perhaps, after all, Mars was a desolate, soulless planet for a long time before the space era began. Modern organisms from Earth could have hitchhiked on things that made their way to the Martian surface from space that weren't properly decontaminated or sterilized. An astrobiologist's worst fear is that we may introduce alien creatures to a planet before we can determine its genuine biological history. Worst case scenario is that Earth life invaded and then outmuscled the primitive Martian life that was still thriving on Mars, causing it to go extinct quickly. We are biologically conservative in our exploration of other planets and foreign universes because of this very real, reasonable concern. Future Mars rovers and orbiters hold out great promise for answering the age-old question of whether or not life has ever existed on Mars. If yes, then the next big question is whether or not this life is connected to or separate from life on Earth. Life could have begun on Earth and spread to Mars, or it could have begun on Mars and spread to Earth. It's also hypothetically possible that life existed long before either planet was formed, and that its earliest forms colonized both worlds. We will have to wait and see for sure. Leave a comment below telling us which theory you think is the most likely. Thanks for watching.